And now, live from the studios of Freedom's Phoenix, Ernest Hancock.
Welcome back to Declare Your Independence. Me, Ernest Hancock, here in Phoenix, Arizona, where it's very nice outside. Mish Shedlock helping us understand. I mean, after, a heated battle during the TARP thing when they were doing the bailout, and everybody had an opinion, and it got lost, some of the fundamentals of what was going on and what we could expect to help chart our way through the future. Inflation, hyperinflation, expansion of the money supply, which is inflation, and what effect it had on prices, deflation. We had Robert Prechter, talk about different kinds of deflation with a different bent on. We had Mish going one way. We had other guys. And everybody's arguing over who's right. And the big problem was you get rid of the Federal Reserve, all these problems kind of take care of themselves. But the one thing is that Mish wanted to make sure that we understood what his contention was, is that when you're looking at an enormous chunk of money that's slinging around electronically and in physical form, whatever, all over the world, and then that goes away by whatever means, guess what's going to happen? So explain that to us, Mish.
Well, but before we can have a discussion on whether or not we're in inflation, in deflation, or in stagflation or whatever term, you have to define what those terms mean. Now, if someone wants to say, or measure inflation by the CPI, then I would say, okay, you know what, I think that's a pretty silly definition. But, I would
define CPI.
The Consumer Price Index, consumer prices. I would say that, I think that's that's the standard by which most people use, even though I think it's silly. Then I would say, okay, more often than not, prices are going to be rising. That they have been. They're probably going to keep doing that. But that's not really an accurate assessment of what's going on, because in my book, credit is more important. Take a look at Japan. It has been really everyone thinks that Japan, and it has been mired in deflation for, my gosh, almost 25 years now. But actually, if you look at consumer prices, they've actually been rising for most of those 25 years. But what has been falling is credit and the value of credit on the books of banks, and falling property prices, and falling rate of loans. Businesses don't really want to expand. Those are the hallmarks of a deflationary period. And if you look and think about what's more important here, I would say the trillions and trillions of dollars that have been wiped off the books as a result of the real estate bust. When someone's home was worth $800,000 3 years ago, and it's now worth $300,000 today, so a drop of $500,000. And this is not uncommon in some of the bubble areas. Well, my God, that's more important than the price of a can of beans going up from $1 to $3. So, it's important to put these things, in context. But if you want to measure inflation and deflation by the price of a can of beans, well, okay, we've been in inflation more often than not. So, but and if you want to look at this expansion of credit, credit is still contracting from 2 years ago. By that measure, we would be in deflation, except I don't see it that way. I think the Fed has momentarily overpowered it with a sentiment that has, everyone speculating in the stock market, everyone speculating in commodities. We've got a financial recovery because the banks were bailed out. You look at all the symptoms of what one would expect to see in inflation, and we've got them right now. So I'm going to say, okay, by my model, we're in a period of inflation here. The question is, how long is that going to last? I think jobs are going to take another turn for the worse. I think we're going to have another credit crunch. I think Europe is right on the verge of a credit crunch right now. I think we're going to have a financial disaster in Japan. All of these things are going to sink global credit. I think China is literally going to blow up. If you want to look at where inflation is, at least, especially on a credit model, the loans for real estate in China went up 41% last year, and they're building cities and bridges and airports that no one's using. And same thing with the housing bubble in the United States. As long as those asset prices keep rising, there's the credit, the value of that credit will hold up. But I think that's going to come to a screeching halt in China anytime now. We've got a regime change coming up in China. Few people know about it. In 2012, the current regime seems hell bent at maintaining employment at any cost, and that means building all of these cities and all these malls that no one's living in and no one's shopping in. But the next regime, and we're seeing inklings of it right now in the news media, seems more worried about the sustainability of this. Well, we all know it's not sustainable. So what's going to happen then? If China slows, we're going to see less demand for commodities. Commodity prices are going to start to come down. Unemployment's going to rise in China. This whole myth, that we've even had this recovery, it's all a mirage. It's all based off of printing in China, printing in the United States, printing in the UK, printing in the Eurozone. So we're starting to see a little bit of tightening here in the United States, not a lot, but at the margin that's going to have an impact.
Whoa, time out. A little bit of any restraint here in the U.S. What would make you even say that?
Oh, just the sentiment change in Congress. The sentiment change is enormous. We've got a $1.5 trillion deficit. The Republicans want to do something about it. They're at least going to try and prevent it from going up. But the real impact is on states. States, unlike the federal government, and they get around it in various ways, of course, we all know that, but 49 out of 50 states have to run a balanced budget. And so we're starting to see layoffs in a lot of states. I think those layoffs are going to accelerate. They're going to accelerate because Congress has actually cut back the amount of money that they're going to send to states. So, we're going to see a rise in unemployment, and right now everyone's expecting, all the government officials will, think that the global economy is going to pick up to make up for that difference. Well, I beg to differ. I think we're seeing a global slowdown. I think unemployment's going to rise. I think that's going to put more stress on the credit markets. I think the junk bond market's back in bubble land. When these things pop, then the value of credit plunges. We're right back there in the problem. We did not address any of the structural problems with credit and with debt in this last crisis. We had a chance to wipe that debt clean. We had a chance to take it out on the banks and force the bondholders to pay their price. The bondholders are going to pay a price in Europe, and eventually it's going to have to happen in the United States too.
All right. Here's a bunch of questions for you. I'm going to need you to stay another segment. You got time, Mish?
15 more?
Yeah.
15 more minutes. Okay.
All right, you're the man. Because these are they're going to hit the button here. I know it. But the questions is that you have these countries like Greece and Portugal and Italy and Spain, and they're going to be begging for more money, and Germany and France are going to go, no. Then the central banks are going to try and save the euro, are going to do what? The states here might as well be, little countries, as they're screeching here in Arizona, billions of dollars behind. We are more per capita in debt in Arizona than any other state in the union. Even though we have
congratulations.
Yay! How are they going to bribe us coming up 2012 election cycle? They'll try with what? We'll talk about it when we come back.